They told you devotion was the path to freedom. But every system that demands your surrender before it gives you truth is not guiding you. It is owning you. You were not born to obey. You were born to remember. If that feels true, you are already awake. Subscribe and come with us. There is a moment every human being experiences at least once in their life. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, usually in the middle of something ordinary. A prayer, a ritual, a sermon, a meditation. And it whispers one unbearable question. What if none of this is actually working? Most people push that question down immediately. They call it doubt. They call it weakness. They call it the enemy trying to pull them away from the light. And so they pray harder, give more, obey more completely, surrender more deeply. They do everything the system tells them to do when the system starts to feel hollow. But the question never fully disappears, because somewhere beneath the conditioning, beneath the years of inherited belief, beneath the fear of being wrong about everything, something in you already knows the answer. Worship, in its original form, was never about submission. It was never about fear. The oldest human impulse toward the divine was not obedience. It was recognition. It was the soul encountering something vast and real and responding not with its knees, but with its entire being. With wonder, with expansion, with an awakening of something dormant inside the self. That original impulse was real. That original contact was genuine. But somewhere along the way, that impulse was taken. It was studied, and it was engineered, and it was rebuilt into something that served an entirely different purpose. The ancient Gnostics understood this with a precision that most modern spiritual traditions have lost. They looked at the dominant religious systems of their time, and they asked a question so dangerous it got them hunted, burned, and erased from official history. What if the God that organized religion worships is not the true source? What if the deity demanding your obedience, your fear, your sacrifice, and your total surrender is not the highest light, but a lesser force that learned how to wear the costume of the highest light? They called this force the Demiurge, the craftsman, the builder, the one who shapes the material world not from true divine fullness, but from a kind of magnificent, terrifying blindness. The Demiurge does not create from love. It creates from a need to be worshipped. And the difference between those two things is the difference between a parent and a warden. A parent wants you to grow beyond them. A warden needs you to stay exactly where you are. Look at the architecture of every system that has ever demanded blind devotion, whether religious, political, ideological, or cultural. Look at what they all share. They all begin with a version of the same promise: surrender yourself completely, and you will be saved, protected, rewarded, elevated. They all contain a version of the same warning: question us, and you will be abandoned, punished, condemned, erased. And they all produce the same result in the human beings who live inside them long enough. Not liberation, not expansion, not the kind of inner freedom that makes a person more fully themselves. They produce dependency. They produce fear of the self. They produce human beings who have learned to distrust their own perception, their own experience, their own direct contact with reality. Because the system told them that direct contact was dangerous, that the individual mind was corrupt, that only the institution stood between them and destruction. This is not an accident. This is a design. The Archons, those forces the Gnostics described as the architects of control within the material system, do not operate through obvious tyranny. Obvious tyranny creates resistance. Obvious tyranny makes people fight back. The most efficient prison is one the prisoner builds themselves, brick by brick, out of genuine belief. Give a person a theology that makes their own questioning feel like sin. Give them a community that disappears the moment they begin to doubt. Give them an identity so thoroughly wrapped around their devotion that leaving the system feels like ceasing to exist. And you will never need chains. You will never need guards. The person will police their own mind with more thoroughness and more cruelty than any external authority ever could. This is what weaponized worship looks like from the inside. It looks like love. It looks like belonging. It looks like truth. It looks like the only solid ground in a world that feels terrifyingly uncertain. And that is precisely why it works so well and why it is so difficult to see from within it. But here is what the Gnostic tradition understood that changes everything. The divine spark inside you, that fragment of true light that Sophia placed within human consciousness before the Demiurge could fully close the system. That spark does not respond to obedience. It does not activate through submission. It does not grow stronger the more thoroughly you erase yourself in the name of something outside you. It responds to recognition. It grows through direct knowing. It activates the moment you stop asking an institution for permission to experience what is already alive inside you. Gnosis, the Greek word for direct experiential knowledge, was not a theological position. It was not a competing religion. It was a method. It was the radical proposition that a human being does not need a priest, a prophet, a hierarchy, or an approved text standing between them and their own divine nature. That the most sacred thing a person can do is to go inward far enough to find the light that was placed there before they were born into this system. Every structure that has ever been built to prevent you from doing exactly that is a prison wearing the mask of salvation. The question is not whether you have been inside such a structure. Almost every human being alive has been shaped by at least one of them. Religious, secular, political, social, it does not matter. The architecture is the same. The question is whether you are willing to look at the structure clearly enough to see what it actually is, not to destroy it, not to condemn every person still inside it, but to see it. Because the moment you see it clearly, the moment you recognize the mechanism rather than continuing to experience it as reality, something shifts. The wall does not disappear immediately, but it loses its invisibility, and an invisible prison is the only kind that works forever. You were not designed for devotion to a system. You were designed for contact with what is real, and those two things are not the same. They have never been the same. The most dangerous thing you can do inside a weaponized worship system is not to rebel loudly. It is to become still, to go quiet, to stop feeding the machine with your fear, your guilt, your desperate need for its approval, to turn your attention inward and ask, with genuine curiosity, and without the permission of any external authority, what do I actually know? What have I actually experienced? What is alive in me that no system gave me and no system can take away? That question is the beginning of everything.